Hello, everyone, and welcome to RHAP's coverage of Australian Survivor the World. I'm your host, Shannon Guss, here for our final stop on the Australian Survivor World Tour, where we have been looking at every single player that will be on the AUV World cast, and we are finishing with a legend. And to talk about that legend, I have a legend with me. Pooya, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. It is wild to be the last one of the final one. Let's make it count. Let's make it a good one.
Yeah, well, Parv, she's a good, legendary name to finish on. Not this whole cast is legends, but she's like a fitting finale. But also, I had to watch all of Quebec, then all of Finland, and then 3 times her whole run on the Traitors, so I could be fully up to speed. Now I have watched the whole Parvati cinematic universe. I haven't read the book, but I needed to do that. Did I learn stuff? I guess, so it was worth it, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think the reality is that Parv is someone who her TV resume was big and then got bigger in the last year. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like it almost doubled in size within the span of a year, which is wild to think about. But it is fun because you're able to really see like different chapters and eras of her life play out on television.
Well, the crazy thing about it is I was doing my Parv research last night, and I was looking up, obviously her Survivor seasons, and I'm like, wow, it is crazy to think that Cook Islands, Micronesia, and Heroes versus Villains are all filmed in the span of just about 3 years from her age of 23 to 26. Like, that is insane to me. Like, the different chapters of my life that I watched that at, like, that, I mean, so that was what, 2006-ish that aired to 2010. That was my entire high school. That was my whole high school years. And Pav was like my hero. And she seemed like the coolest, most mature, person ever. She was doing these things at like 24, winning Survivor. Now, and then I rewatched her as Villains for when we did the rewatches in 2021, and I was like 28. So I'm like, oh, now I'm like kind of her contemporary. And now that I'm 32, I'm like, how did you let this child run stuff like the Navy? Like, you let a 24-year-old do that? Like, she came in at 26 and had everyone pressed on Heroes v Villains. She was 26 years old. Like, now that I'm in my 30s, just a few years out of it, it's shocking to me that all happened in her like early 20s.
I mean, I don't think I could do that at 26. Let me tell you. It takes a certain level of like aura and energy to pull that off, and I don't think I would have been capable. So it is very impressive though that she was able to do that.
Well, it's just like, and I'm like, wow, she seems so mature to me, but that's because I was 14. But like,
yeah,
that's how long my like multi-decade love of Parvati goes. Like, I definitely was 17 watching Heroes v Villains, 15 watching Micronesia, and Parvati was like, she was so cool, and she was also the cool girl I will never be. Like, kind of like we said in the Shawnee podcast, that Shawnee's way too cool for me. Parvati is like a million, like, it's actually, and it's crazy that this is what Parvati's made her name off, like this silly Survivor game is also shocking to me. Like, Parvati kind of feels like she's above it, but she's also really good at it, and she's really, really smart. But I kind of feel like Parvati would laugh at me for doing this podcast.
See, I disagree. I feel like Parv is someone who definitely can give off the energy that she is above it. But I think when she's in it, she's in it. Like, I remember, like, just listening to her do interviews and stuff, you can tell she loves this. She loves all of this. It's not just a paycheck opportunity. It's like love of the game is definitely there.
But that's what's shocking to me. Like, I think that doesn't necessarily fit with the archetype. Like, she definitely loves it, and I'm like, kind of why? I think that, like, Parvati's whole aura as well, and maybe this is because it was, like, formed in the, like, when I look at her, like, multi-decade trajectory, like, it was formed, obviously, in her early 20s, but I feel like, yes, she was, like, kind of in the railroad pack in Cook Islands, but very quickly in Micronesia, at the age of 24, she will become the, like, clique leader. It's very cliquey. It's very us versus them. It's not just like communal social game. It's like, I have an army. I'm the leader of that army, despite my young age. And often they win. And we see that in Heroes Villains. We see that in Micronesia. It's like getting a team, often a girl group, and being the leader of that. And I think what we've kind of seen, and what I'm kind of maybe projecting onto her, but what I do think will be true in AUV world, is like her decades on with that kind of mentorship role for maybe younger women, or like definitely being the leader. But yeah, like less but like more from that, maybe more like parental role, like older sister kind of vibe. I think we saw that with Michelle in Winners at War. In DONDI, she literally was the mother in the family. So I can see that now happening with this cast for AUV World, and I think it is a very natural progression of her being like the leader of the gangs, often like girl gangs, having like a ride or die, and then kind of having it like more for me being a mentor figure, and that's what I'm projecting onto her for this upcoming season.
Yeah, I think that she is someone who I like the place she is in, because I feel like Dondi kind of gave that, where it's like, yeah, so what? I won the show, and what? Like, it doesn't change anything. I feel like she's a lot more willing to be open about that stuff, and there's just something so disarming about that. I feel like in a lot of these shows, everyone's like, "Oh, I'm gonna hide this thing about myself and this thing about myself," and Parva's nowhere to hide at this point. So she's like, everything's out in the open, and what about it? And is able to use that to her advantage. I feel like a lot of people would buckle under that pressure.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing with Parvati is that she's like so charming, but I do think it's like charming to her people, and then like the heroes hated her, right? Like they had the worst things to say. Ozzy hates her, maybe like was a little bitter about that, and then even in like the Traitors, which I just 3 times, Phaedra hilariously was like, "You're the Ice Queen," and she was like, doing the Parv faces, and she was on point. Like, how do you, especially as a Traitors expert, like how do you reconcile what we've just seen from her recently in the Traitors with kind of the Parv that we've known? Because I feel like there was relationships there, but it wasn't a huge relationship game for Parvati when we have this like recent history of her now, being in other shows.
It's hard. Her Traitors game was very hard to follow, because she is someone who she's, I believe, the first person in Traitors US history to be selected to be a traitor, not by the show, but by a player, right? In the because Dan and Phaedra get picked, and then along comes Parv later. So she gets added and put in there. And she early on is working with Dan. They're both reality TV, like competitive reality TV people, CBS family. So they're working together. The problem is then Dan proceeds to not only be very suspect, but then also make a poor move, which fell onto both her and him, because the trap that was set by Pilot Pete was,
Pilot
hey,
Pete.
Pilot Pete.
No, Pilot Pete. No.
Yeah.
I'm a Bachelor fan. Like, you understand what it's like. I don't even know Dan, but like I know the lore of Dan. To watch Parvati and Dan getting clocked by Pilot Pete is wild. Pilot Pete, who dated first, second, and fifth from his season. Pilot Pete, and he was good at it. It was really shocking. I'm like, am I missing this because I'm 3 timesing it, or is Pilot Pete kind of crushing this game?
He had a good hold on it. He isn't without his own mistakes also. But I
Yeah,
think
he was too
I was
loyal.
happy.
Not
In a
on the
way, I was
Bachelor.
happy that happened, because I feel like too many times our world, Shannon, our realm, will do exactly that, right? We'll come out like, this person was on The Bachelor. They're probably going to be a non-factor. Who cares? They don't know how to play a game. And it's like, why not? Just because they were on this show, they could be the best gamer ever. They just didn't get to show it to us. And I feel like
Yeah,
that is always important to keep in mind.
I know. I just said he wasn't loyal on The Bachelor, but to be fair to Pilot Pete, I'm pretty sure he was getting dumped a lot. So it wasn't actually that he just kept, and he kept falling to like the new people. Anyway, it's not Pilot Pete's fault. He really crushed
Yeah.
at least like he crushed
Well,
what Traitors would be if Traitors was Werewolf, but because Traitors is like
right.
an individual game, he didn't. But he
Yeah.
was
If this
he
was a
set traps for
town
them and
versus
won.
the
Yeah,
he
exactly.
that trap was very hard to replicate. It truly was you got to be very dumb to make this move. And the move happened. He traps Dan and Parv as a result of it. Dan does leave, but then on the way out, Dan throws out Phaedra's name, which does help, I think, Parv a little bit, because then Phaedra was being looked at, like moving down the line. But from there on, it was kind of cooked. Parv then, in an attempt to who do we bring to the turret, tries to bring Pete into it to like smooth things over. Pete declines to do so, and that almost gives him confirmation that, all right, Parv is definitely the one, because she's trying to bring me in here. It was a big mess.
It was a
I think
mess.
the thing I like, her best moment that I like to remind people of is twofold. One is, I do like that her and Sandra smooth things over. That's one. Two is she poisoned Ekansu, and that was a
Yeah, she
very
did
fun
poison. That was
watch.
a really cool moment. Has that happened in other Traitors?
That is the thing they like doing. The murder in plain sight is a thing a lot of the different franchises
Okay.
do mess with quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of Parvati to talk about. I love that I just like binged the season over the last 2 days, and I have questions like, was Pilot Pete really crushing them like that? And he was, which is insane. My concern with Parvati on the Traitors again as like a recent example of like actual strategy, I guess more than something like Dondi, which we can talk about. But well, not the Dondi, he does have strategy. Unfortunately, that's the world we live in. But I think that my concern is, I'm like, okay, was she being shady? Or was she just making really bad decisions that was putting people onto her and like largely led by Dan? You know, really bad decisions in the turret that was like pointing the finger. And as you said, like being like Dan being really taken by that trap, really destroyed all the traitors. But then I'm like, but then Phaedra was saying she was icy. Like something had, and like she was very, I guess, close and reliant on Dan and didn't cut that cord enough. Like I don't know that I can say that it was just bad decisions following Dan. I think there had to have been stuff there socially that also put her on the radar to be, you know, even, you know, that Pilot Pete is even trying to put her into the trap. And that's a little bit concerning, surely.
I mean, it's tough, especially now, you know, we've done 3 seasons of the Traitors US. More and more, I think people are going to smarten up and look at these reality TV folks, the competitive, the Big Brothers, the survivors. Parv has a reputation. Parv has a reputation. Like Parv's coming into the season, not only being a winner, but also being someone who's made the finals, someone whose name is bigger, larger than life to some of these people. Dan is known as like he won Big Brother, so that's a huge thing. So like they're always going to have eyes on them naturally, but I think what ends up happening is all it takes is a little bit, one conversation, one vibe pulse check that doesn't pan out, and now someone's going to be on your tail and looking at you. The unfortunate reality is the person that was doing that was Pete, because he ends up setting up that trap with Bergie that they went for, and then they failed. The other thing also is we had this moment where Parv did Parv throw out like Phaedra's name, and then that was kind of
She
like
did
that
a
put
little
Phaedra
bit. That
on.
was she was like she was vague.
Yeah.
No, she vaguely threw out the housewives to try and get, and we kind of saw it in actually. I don't. We should be talking about Survivor, but I did just watch the Traitors. I'm glad it's coming in handy. Dan was like, we thought that Dan kind of put out to her like maybe we should start floating Phaedra, and that Parv kind of takes that bait and then does kind of push Phaedra, and Phaedra is like very gracious and forgiving. Phaedra, by the way, I know I'm years late to this, but like wonderful television character. She was hilarious. But yes, I think that there were kind of like there were wrong decisions being made. I think on
Mhm.
like yeah, vaguely throwing out like the housewives and Phaedra, like kind. I guess it's kind of what um Bob the drag queen did to Boston Rob, where he was like, it's one of these 3 guys, and Boston Rob's like, that's me. I'm in that. You can't just say these guys and say that's not me. That narrows it down to me. And it was
Yeah.
kind of in that. But Phaedra was very forgiving, much more than Boston Rob. But I think my big takeaways were the Traitors is a very different game. It's a tough game. You know,
It
I
is.
think my biggest takeaway was like, wow, Sari was an incredible trainer. Like, it is tough. Like, I'm not saying she played it well. I'm just saying that I don't know how much bearing that has on like Survivor. Survivor's her game. Like, Survivor's in her blood. Like, she's been dominating this since I was in high school. So I think that's a little different. Like, it didn't make me so low on Parvati, even though I didn't think that she was like having a phenomenal time. She did poison Ekin-Su. So, you know, that was cool to watch.
Yeah, I think that that's the thing I always advocate for is that like for to be very clear, Dan played a very poor game to like finish off the Traders talk. Dan played a horrible game on Traders. For me personally, his Big Brother legacy doesn't change. It just proves that Dan is not good at this other game, which is why when we've talked about Suri in so many shows, it's like Suri is someone who you can plug and play into any show, and she does well every single damn time. She, since her trader stint, proved it on Big Brother, even making it all the way to the final 5. So she is like, that is a generational player, an athlete. You know, you've got like people who are an athlete to a sport. No, she's a natural athlete to every show. Suri is. Now, Parv, I think to me also is proof of being able to do that as well. I think Parv would have probably done better on a faithful side of things than the trader side of things, especially with that turret was not the best combination for her specifically. That being said, I think her stint on Dondi just proved that she still got it. And that's not a show like Survivor either. That is a very different show, different game.
Yeah, I think this is going to come off more negative about Parv than I want it to be, and then we're going to talk about her on Survivor, and I'll be very positive most of the time. I think that like, but when we talk about how Parvati's social game is like us versus them, it's not necessarily communal and like so overarching. Suri, I think, is more like that. Maybe that's why Suri's skills are more generalized, can lend themselves to kind of more of these avenues. And she's so good. That's obviously a high bar. But I think with Parv, it is us versus them. It is win versus loss, and it's often a win. But I don't think that that's going to hit 100% of the time. I think she takes on leadership roles. She plays big. She plays cutthroat every time. And if you're getting, 70% on that, that's very impressive. But I don't think Parv wins 100% of the time. Winners at war, it's again, new school, old school. Old school loses. She loses Ethan even before we get to a very unfortunate swap. So I think we've seen that a lot recently, and sure, let it maybe even some capacity, if anyone, I mean, I don't know what these people have seen of her reality TV, but if that takes down her threat level a little bit, sure. But I think it's more that it just speaks to the kind of game she plays. It's a little bit more binary on the win-loss, and I don't think, I think just Suri, someone who's a little bit more generalized and communal with the stuff, and that probably serves her well in the versatility of those skills.
Yeah, I think that I'm just trying to take it all in. I feel like for the difference between the two is that with Suri, no matter how many times that woman's been on a show, she's always somehow able to hide in the shadows and play the game from there. Whereas someone like Parv, it's like, even if she wanted to, I don't think she's capable of doing, because so many people have eyes on her like every time. So even if she starts off being in the shadows, she's like, well, jig is up. I'm out in the front now because I have no other choice. Like, they're gonna look at me regardless. So she has to, almost in a way. Whereas Suri, I feel like more often than not is not even lent that. I think just gets discounted, or they don't know her and they don't look at her. So like, as far as also first impressions, if you don't know anything about our reality TV world, right, and you meet Suri, you're like, oh, this seems like an older woman. She seems fun, but I don't think she could beat me in this, and whatever. And then you see Parv and you're like, oh my God, this woman, she's like confident. She's beautiful. She looks like she's like a model. That's intimidating, blah, blah, blah. And then they're like, oh, she's dumb. And then they'll hear her talk like, oh, she's not dumb. So I feel like it's also a little bit of that, like the roles you fall into. And historically, the role Parv has fallen into has been that role. So it makes it so that it's very hard to hide when they're just gawking at you. And then you have to play your game differently.
I think that's a wonderful point. I think that's the comparison of that is completely on point. You could almost compare it to the disparity between like a David and a Luke. Like, Luke has a little more room to hide. He kind of comes across as this like family man and this jokester. Like, he is a cutthroat, but he has other personas to hide behind that people might prioritize, even though his record
goofy,
is proven.
Yeah, like,
but then
Luke
David is always going to be like, and maybe this is why he and Parvati like connected. Like, you don't look at David and ever think anything other than like, that guy's in charge. And if he's going to win, he's going to win from the front, and that's going to be very, very impressive.
I mean, the man called himself the Golden God, for crying out loud. Like,
Luke called himself the King of the Jungle. Okay, we all have nicknames here in Australia.
I guess that's fair. But then, like, I think what you said makes sense, because with Luke being a little more like goofy about it, I feel like, they're in a world like it's a little bit Tyson-esque. I would say there's moments of Tyson that people could forget that, oh, Tyson is like this brilliant player because he's a coconut bandit and he's silly and he has like dry sense of humor. So stuff like that can disarm people is very important. And then depending on who you're surrounded by, it can either allow you to hide or you're right up front and center. So I feel like obviously that's a different conversation when we are looking and considering where we are now, given that everyone here is a known entity of sorts going into AU versus the world. So this is no longer the first impression and like, oh, I don't know this person. You still might not know who they are, but God damn it, you're gonna know who Parvati is. The woman has been on 4 seasons of Survivor, and has made a whole name for herself. Easily, in my opinion, probably like Mount Rushmore or top 10 for sure, top 5 most likely players of all time.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
yeah.
In name alone. I mean, I think, okay, so now to get to Survivor and to be a little more positive about Parvati, because if we're saying that she has to play from the front, she has nowhere to hide. She came in even at the age of 23, 24, and even like, I mean, to be fair, I guess she had a little bit of room to hide in Micronesia because she was kind of a questionable pick coming in as like just the flood, and she hadn't like really made a name for herself in Cook Islands, but she so quickly did in Micronesia. Like again, that's kind of just innately how she plays, let alone how she's perceived, that she wins that game playing from the front. She gets the Black Widow Brigade together. She is in control. Like she's the queen bee of those fighters. Now I'm mixing bugs, but I think that that's the way that she plays it. And then when she goes into heroes versus villains, she's like, if not the number one name, she's up there. She's absurd. You're all scared of this like 26-year-old. It's fine. 26 is an adult. It's fine. But like she had just won Micronesia, which was the biggest season. They had 4 people from Micronesia there. They had 3 of the Black Widows. She comes in as target numero uno. And to be fair, Suri also is a big target in that season, even though she's hidden it other times. But Parvati is on the back foot from the beginning. Like she and Russell are clawing through that pre-merge. She gets to the end. Like she shouldn't have had a week in that game. Like that is so impressive to me. And I think that, I don't know how hot a take this is, and I don't think it's a very hot take, but like I've always seen her heroes versus villains game as more impressive than her Micronesia game for reasons like that. She comes in at so much of a higher threat level, whereas in Micronesia, like she comes in a good spot. And obviously the big kind
discounted.
Yeah, and then as well in Micronesia, she takes Suri to the end, to the final 3, and then it's a surprise final 2. They all think it's a final 3. That'll always be like a fatal flaw for me because I really think Suri would have won, and I think about it a lot. And people debate it. I think Suri's going to win that game. But then heroes versus villains, she loses. And I don't know how much of that is on Parvati. Like, we can talk about the merge move, which is like one of the best moves I think of all time. But also, I think a lot of the reason that Parvati loses heroes versus villains is because Russell takes out Danielle at the final 7. And that made no sense. It didn't make sense for Parvati. It didn't make sense for Russell, who I guess is playing like an automatically losing game. Like, if you watch a lot of that season, like Russell... the Russell is like really like, it's very, very toxic. Like it goes almost beyond the game, the sense of like control and possessiveness he's trying to have over Parvati. And it's a lot of things of like Parvati doing her own thing and having her own idol. And I think she's kind of like screaming out for some agency beyond him to kind of almost make a mark because he is so controlling and possessive. And he responds kind of, very aggressively, strategically, also aggressively just in the game by taking out Danielle. Now, if Parvati goes to the end with Danielle and Russell, I think it's a better spot for Russell. Not that it's a winning game either way, but I think Parvati does win that game. At the point where Danielle's been taken out from under her for no real strategic reason, and really just this like beyond game element of like toxic control for a 26-year-old who has played Survivor 3 times in 3 years. Like at that point, the game is hard. Like at that point, I know like the Evolution of Strategy always did great stuff about how Parvati was seen as complicit with Russell, and maybe you should have taken out Russell. Like at that point, maybe you go, you change course and you take out Russell, because sitting next to Russell in a final 3 when there's a third option and you're complicit with Russell doesn't look good. If it's a final 2, you win. But like, yeah, in that final 3, that's tough. But then that's a hard needle to thread with heroes you don't necessarily want to sit with in a like heavy hero jury. I think she was
a hero would win if they get there. Like, your outs are a lot smaller. Yeah,
and it's still, I think she was put in between a rock and a hard place in some things that honestly would kind of be on the game, in just kind of how toxic Russell was. I think she does amazing things in that game, and I don't really blame her for the loss in a tricky situation compared to like, actually I blame her for what should have been a loss in Micronesia and turned into a win. So I think the heroes versus villains game for me is like, it's probably the best losing game of all time, and I think that's a very cold take.
Well, what's funny is my experience with Parv was I had watched heroes versus villains first. I had not seen her other 2 games. In fact, I hadn't seen Micronesia. Micronesia was the last one I saw of the 3. Because do you remember when Winners at War was about to go down? And we did those it was like a roundtable format of like for the preseason of the Winners at War. We did those like, okay, yeah, the character profiles, Parvati. But it was like I had Parvati also. We were on the same podcast.
Were you on that podcast? I think we were on the same podcast.
Yeah.
When we did Tyson.
Yeah. That was when I watched Micronesia and Cook Islands for the first time.
How would you never seen it?
So my Survivor history is weird because I had seen like a couple of seasons, like I think 22, 21, 22 in the middle. I'd not seen any other seasons. And then during Cagayan, I got sucked in, watched that live, and then went backwards. So I watched Blood vs. Water, then I watched Fan vs. Favorites, then I watched Philippines, and so on.
Oh, that's killing me. Oh, why did you do that?
So
Oh no.
I went backwards. I made it all the way to Micronesia. Actually, no. I went all the way to what's after Micronesia? Gabon?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I watched Gabon. Then I
then you
stopped.
Yeah.
I stopped going backwards. And I stopped going backwards just because, like, at that point I'm like watching Big Brother. So there's a lot of other shows going on. Then I eventually did watch Micronesia for that podcast. So I finished that. And then last year I started from, because I'd already seen Borneo. So I started from Borneo and like started going back up to watch a lot of the seasons that I have not seen. So there you go.
Oh my God, that's shocking to me. I didn't know that was such a recent history for you. My history was, as I said, loving Parvati in high school. I've told the story on the podcast before, but when Sandra beat Parvati, I was a casual. I didn't understand the Sandra angle. I love Sandra. Obviously now she's in my Mount Rushmore. At the time, I didn't get it. I wanted Parvati to win. And to this day, I would have voted for Parvati. Again, I wasn't there. The heroes didn't like her. I think she played a phenomenal game, and I don't really blame her for the loss, but I completely understand Sandra's win. However, at the time, I was very upset. That Sandra beat Parvati, and I wrote a letter to Jeff Probst and I sent it to him on MySpace, and I was like, I don't know what the solution is, but you need to talk to these jurors and tell them to get it together, Jeff. I was like, the jury, even like stupid casual 17-year-old me was like, the jury should still be voting. I'm not like Russell that like the fans should be voting, but like I think maybe you should ask the jurors to really take a good hard look in the mirror about how they're voting, and also check out my music, Jeff. Anyway, this is MySpace by, and it was 2010, and there are people in this world who have that letter, and they're blackmailing me to this day. They can have anything they want. I hope that letter never sees the light of day. But
why is it cringe?
It's so cringe. I told him to check out my music on MySpace, Pooya. Like, what do you think?
Frame it.
It could have been more. I don't even know if
person who's got that letter. If you send me a copy also, that way we make sure there's always one copy available in case something happens.
I literally, like, there are friends now. They still watch Survivor, and they're like, just remember, I have this letter from you. It's the worst thing that's ever happened to me. It's the worst thing I've ever done. I've done some bad things, but I remember sitting there like in class, and I was like writing it out like on paper. This was 2010. I was like type it up to him on my computer at home and send it to him on MySpace. And I was just like, Jeff. I was like, I remember saying, it boils my blood, Jeff. I kept using his name. Anyway, I love Parvati, and I always have. I think that's the point of the story, but I would vote for her to this day. Should we talk about the merge move? Should we talk about, because I want to, like, I think, is that the best? That's one of the best moves of all time. On a podcast yesterday, I said the Tony move, that we were taking Tony, was the best move of all time. I probably stand by it. But I think the merge move, basically, for the people who are not here, who have not seen this somehow, the best season of all time, it's 5 villains, 5 heroes for reasons. The villains have all of the idols, including the hero's idol. Russell is a mole, so they think Russell's with them. So Russell's immune. What the hero should have done is voted out Russell. It was like a straight shot. Hopefully, if he wasn't with you, if he was with you, it's too bad. Anyway,
right?
He is, but clearly that's what they should have done. But Russell's basically immune because they think he might be with them. So there's 4 people they could vote for. Parvati gives away 3 immunities. She has 2 idols. She plays them on 2 other people. The first time 2 idols were played, I think the only time they weren't played, one of them wasn't played on you. She gives away. She bows out of the immunity challenge so that Danielle can win immunity. So all of the other 3 people are immune. She is the most vulnerable just on her own implicit immunity, her own read of Amanda. They are not voting for her, but she's actually the most vulnerable. Everyone else is actively immune other than Russell, who is more protected by being a double agent. It's so ballsy. It's so cool. How did you come into the game as like the number 1 threat that shouldn't even be here? You're handing out idols like you're freaking Oprah. You get an idol. You get an idol. And there was no way that the villains could lose the numbers at that incredibly pivotal merge vote. Bravo. Like, watching it again a few years ago, like, it's as good as I remember, and it's so good.
I mean, the Ice Queen, cool as a cucumber when it came to all that. Because let me tell you, that's the exact kind of stuff that would make me implode. That overthinking of like that panic. But to be that selfless, to dish out 2 idols for a tide shift, and then not only that, and then it hits, which I think
It has
that's
to
the
hit.
key. It absolutely hits and takes them out and like kind of gives them the headway they needed to make their way to the end.
Yeah, I mean, it has to hit. It's 100% chance. Like, again, unless they are double bluffing Parvati, which he's reading well enough to know is not true, unless the heroes, again, winners of the show who are great players, you would think, are going to like big brain it and just take out Russell, which is kind of like the thing I
Mhm.
think like Boston Rob would have done, like not even just the Russell bit, but just like that third option. But they're not thinking that way. Like, if you're thinking there are 4 options, she has secured immunity by a challenge, by idols, and by implicit immunity for herself for all 4 of them. Like, she assures a hit. And it's such an insanely
She only
important merge vote.
single-handedly advantage Geddoned her side to
Yeah, she
victory.
did. She did in so many
Mhm.
and so many ways by leaving herself as technically the vulnerable target. That's that's why that's why I'm writing to Jeff in 2010. Like, do you see what she did? Even I at the time. So that's so wonderful. What else about Parvati? Like, what stands out to you as the Parvati expert about like things people should know about her game or things that she does miraculously well?
I am somebody who I'm a sucker for someone's social game ability in these shows. Doesn't matter whether it's this, Big Brother, Traitor, anything. That's the tool I think is the most important, and Parvati is the master of that ability. I think that there's something so disarming about her. Again, the sheer fact that, and I want to go to Dondi real quick. She clocks Golden God. What is his name? Evades me suddenly for some reason.
David?
David. I was about to call him Dave, which I was like, that's not right.
No,
David.
Dave,
Yeah.
we can do
She
Dave. We're casual enough with
nah,
him.
but I feel like he's a David. Like I've met Dave's, he's a David, you know?
It
Anyway.
does feel weird sometimes. We do call him Dave, but he doesn't feel like a Dave. It's it's very
Right?
Aussie.
Yeah. So then she like clocks David, and then David works with her. They work together in lockstep. And there's like, this is Parvati you're playing with, and she's finding allies that are willing to ride with her and take her to the end. I think that is always a very cool feature to see, and I think it's one of those things where I guess one of the more sad and harsh realities of these kinds of shows and just life is that once you go on a show once, if you perform well, you have a reputation. So we can never relive your first try because you now are known. You're a known entity. So then she goes out on Micronesia, wins, comes into Heroes vs. Villains, known entity, winner, still makes it to the final 3 with that reputation.
And some think she
And
should have
like,
won, and some wrote to Jeff about it. So as
right,
well.
right. Like
Yeah.
a 10-year-old out there in the world did
I was
write to
17.
Jeff.
I was
Okay,
17.
and you said my music, listen to it. It'll bring
On
you into a
MySpace.
good mood, Jeff.
I don't think he
Have it with
listened
your
to it.
morning tea. You
I
don't
don't
think he
think he
listened to it?
listened at
I think
all.
he brushed his teeth to it every night.
If Jeff is a fan now, that would be crazy. Let me know, Jeff. Anyway. So anyway, you were saying, and she goes and she makes a deep run. Yes, sorry, my music. Continue on.
So then yeah, I'm saying all this just to reiterate that I think that you can have all the strategy in the world, but if you don't have the social ability to either work down that threat level or that reputation, or have that reputation exist and make people feel comfortable enough to want to play with you again, it doesn't matter how good you are strategically. It doesn't matter how good your motion is with physical stuff, because the social is what's going to keep you in there after you've repeated this a couple of times. I think it's also why my argument for Suri being one of the best players out there is that also is, again, time. If you're able to time and time again convince people to give you a chance to let you play and to not immediately target you, that is good. That's why some of these other people, I don't see them in the same level, because they'll go on any other show and within the first like month, people want them out because they are not able to shake off that reputation. And Parv is able to do that a lot of times.
Yeah, by leaning into the reputation. I think that that is what is so cool about it. Like, even just to talk about why she had that reputation in Heroes versus Villains, it wasn't just that they'd won this, that she had won this huge season of Micronesia. It's how they did it. The Black Widow
Mm-hmm.
Brigade
Mm-hmm.
is still screwing over
Talk about
women to
it.
this day. Yeah,
Talk
like
about
it's
it. It
like
happened
people are
once,
scared.
Shannon.
People are
It
scared of
happened
women
once.
still. Well, I
Yeah.
guess Kim is like, but yeah, I mean, the way that they did it, it was poetic. Like, taking out all the men, it was
I mean,
perfect. It was absolutely
Shannon,
perfect.
it was the group that is responsible for arguably the dumbest move in Survivor history. They convinced
Yeah.
someone to give immunity up and then voted his ass out. And she was a part
Yeah,
of
and
that.
that was like the crowning move, considering also before that there was like a string of blindsides of men with idols, like Ozzy being the biggest one in that. These like huge threats who I guess like archetypally you think would more win archetypically? No. Would more like, you know, be running the game. And the women came together to like laugh in confessional. Like, Parvati's so good in the confessional, but she, just they all did the thing, flossing the teeth. I don't even remember what season that was on, but flossing the teeth with the jugular and all of that. Like, there's the whole. It was the perfect Black Widow analogy through the whole thing, and Parvati as well. Like, that's the kind of confessionals that Parvati gives. There's like this gleeful evilness to it. Like, she's such a fun villain who embraces it. Like, even in voting out Eric, the confessional was just, you're going to go down as the dumbest player that ever, literally ever, like that. And she's like laughing, the Parvati giggle. They destroyed the men. They destroyed the men so hard that decades later, women cannot have a conversation on this show. That coming back to bite them. And that obviously had a lasting impact on the way she would be perceived in her future seasons. And still to this day, she was 24 years old. She was leading it. How did you allow? Anyway, it's crazy to
I
me,
think
but it was so impressive. Like, before she gets to, I think, like, she shouldn't let Sarie get to the end, but she put the Black Widow Brigade together, and then that group with various, her and Amanda and Sarie and Natalie, like with various skills, they orchestrated some amazing things.
Yeah, I think that also the other thing for me, I just had a thought. I hope it didn't fly away. Yes. Okay.
Like
So
spider.
I think something else to keep in mind. So she, until Winners at War, her last appearance was Survivor Heroes vs. Villains, aka Survivor 20. And
Yeah.
how many people since I don't have the figure in front of me, but Parvati was easily a top 3 mention on applications of who's your favorite or who would you like to play like Parv. You know how quickly that would get into some people's heads? That ego would inflate. I've never felt like Parvati thinks her shit doesn't stink. Like, obviously the confessionals sometimes will give that energy, but I've never gotten that vibe from her like anywhere else, like in the reality, in the real world. You know what I mean? I don't get that vibe from her ever. So I think that's also important. Staying humble is key. Like, never thinking you're above other people allows you to open and use so many other avenues in the game, so many doors, so many communications, so many people, because no one's above you. And as long as no one's above you, and you're not, no one's beneath you, keeping the door open with as many people as possible is a good thing.
Well, we talk about it as like a Mount Rushmore player. You're going to have that kind of reputation on Micronesia and Heroes versus Villains, which are, a returning season and a half with legends. They are like must-watch seasons. I'm sure which you got to a few years ago, but they are widely considered 2 of, if not the best 2 seasons. So people watch it. They're like they're like Survivor history. Heroes versus Villains is always talked about as like kind of the end of that era, the Survivor movie. And Micronesia is such essential watching, usually before that season, that she's a highly visible threat. Like someone like Kim. Like, a lot of people would have heard that Kim is great, but like, did they watch One World? You don't need to watch it. Just know that Kim is great. Whereas like people watch Parvati in 2 seasons be fantastic, and that's why the legacy endures decades later, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of. Okay, actually, someone fact check me on this. I'm pretty sure Micronesia was one of the seasons that ended up on Netflix, right? Yes, maybe, perhaps.
Well, definitely Heroes versus Villains was.
Question mark. Oh, for sure that was. Yeah. But that's a great point. Also, is that there are some great players in the history books that are not as, I wouldn't say prevalent, just not as known because they're not part of the shall we call it the normie Mount Rushmore, as in they're not the 4 seasons that an average person would watch it. You know what I mean? Like,
the seasons you would recommend to people.
Right. I feel like top 4 would have Heroes vs. Villains on it. I think Kagiyan is smack dab in there as well. I think I don't know which one of the Boston Rob ones you chuck in there, but like the point is there's a bunch there. There's a couple there, and that one is one of the bigger ones. And she's one of the more she's like one of the most prominent players on there, which is like keeps her fresh in the mind, which again is why I'm so impressed when she's able to go on a show and run it back like nothing happened. Because again, it's an art form. to use that reputation and survive it. It really is. So many other players can't do that, are not afforded that opportunity. Sometimes it's like, okay, it's not on them. But then sometimes I'm like, I mean, well, Parv's clearly, managing it, will navigate it. Why can't you do the same?
Yeah, and the thing is, when we talk about how she has to lean into that and then either win big or like kind of lose, but most of the time will win. Yeah, you look at Dondi as an
Mm-hmm.
example. Her name's out there. Like, she's such an outlier. For a long time, she's the only reality TV contestant that people know about because Dr. Bo comes later, and David, people don't know that he
Is
was on
hidden.
Survivor. Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
she was safe every round until she went home and lost against the banker. But her name is
Mm-hmm.
out there. But she's also, it's not just that she's safe. Like, she has this family. She has these allies. Like, it's again this war that she often wins, and that's why AUV World looks so good. Because if she's going to have to go to war, if she's coming in as one of the biggest names, because she's been one of the biggest names for the last 2 decades almost, if she's going to
Mm-hmm.
come in that way and have to lean into it and has nowhere to hide and has to win the war, like, the war is there to be won on AUV World because there are so many options for her. Like, she has David, who was her island husband on Dondi. She, like, it's not even that she was like, again, I've said this before. No one could know how close they are. Like, you can hear it. You can hear it. They're closer than you could ever imagine. And you still couldn't imagine how close they are from Dondi. That she was there with him as he won 9 million Australian dollars and he never had to betray her. Like, they are so close. And he just won 9 million Australian dollars. Like, a large part of me does wonder if David will play for Parvati. I know he wants the glory and the title. I'm not saying he's going to give up his game. I'm just saying that he kind of owes her one, right? Like, I think, he just won like the most money ever. So she has David. David's so well connected. She has Sari, who is a decades long incredible relationship and a wonderful,
Mm-hmm.
incredible
Mm-hmm.
player in her own right. So they're going to do some damage. She has fans. I think she has so much reverence. I think Sarah will love her. Shawnee had a clip about loving Parvati, not even knowing who she was. And Shawnee is like the perfect little mentee figure for her mentorship,
Mm-hmm.
I think. Not that Shawnee needs it in the game, but I think more of just on a personal level of like now playing as a new mother and just being a few years later in life. Um, yeah, so Sarah, Shawnee, I think Cass could be into it. I think George will have reverence. Like, I think there'll be a lot of reverence for her. And I can see this gang of her being the leader. I can see her doing it better than ever. And when she does it well, there are big wins. So I think that she's in such a good spot coming into the season.
I think so too. There's a reason why she is my winner pick going into the season. And I've already talked a lot about the skill set that she possesses, but I also agree that this cast is great for her. I think she's in a great spot. The starting tribe of 7, 3 Americans, yourself, Suri, Tight, Tony, a fellow winner, not a bad spot necessarily, but also Tony being a 2-time winner that won $3 million, a little easier to throw under that bus if they're the other 4 like, ooh, Americans, let's get rid of one of them. That's a nice spot to land in. I think also seeing the makeup of the remaining internationals, I think that she can get along well with practically any of them. All you need is to give Parvati maybe one episode, one bye. If she survives one tribal, I think she can get a foothold in that tribe to stay going into the merge, and then the merge could be the real test. But if a David is waiting for her there, that is massive. But even if David is not waiting there for her, let's say, and you still have like a Shawnee there or a Sarah there, I think those are all good connections for her as well. I also think her and Janine could get along well. There's a world where David, like if we play a world, Shannon, where David's not there, I'm sure David will put in a good word for Parv on the way out to like people that he's working with. So they'll be like, okay, you know what? I'll talk to Parv. That'll help me out, but then also it helps Parv out. So like I think Luke and her would get along. Like who is she? Who is not messing with her? I think the only one I could think of that may not mess with her is George, and that's because he doesn't want to face
No.
her, right?
I think
So
George would have reverence for her. Like, George loves Survivor, and I think Parvati is a
yeah,
big part of that. I'm not saying he wouldn't
but
necessarily vote her out. I'm just saying that he would.
off
Yeah,
respect, he'd be like, I
yeah,
can't have her be here, right?
yeah.
Like
That's
that kind
fair.
of thing.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't see her in trouble early. I don't see her in trouble later than early. Like, I kind of like, I think she's got connections across the board. I can't imagine that, like, Parvati first. She's way too connected and too beloved and will connect with people with her natural charisma and her reputation anyway. And then, like, I guess the worst spot for her is maybe like getting later on. Like, that's clearly Parvati voted her out. that's Parvati Shallow. What are you doing? I think that that's maybe it. It's not a lot of time for that. It's a
Mhm.
short game, but maybe at that point, is maybe like the trickiest spot for her. But I do think this is just such a good space for her, and there's so much synergy with some of these women in a female majority cast. Like Shawnee loves getting another woman and having this amazing duo. She does it every time. Parvati as
Mhm.
well has always had the Amandas, the Danielle. She had a Michelle, where she had that kind of connection as well. I think she loves doing something like that. I think as well we have Janine, who actually has had a girl group, despite how dangerous Parvati made them be. In 2008, like Janine worked with strong women,
Mhm.
and really, that was her kind of play style as well. There's something there that's going to be very, very powerful. And I think if anyone can capitalize, and if anyone has kind of like created the meta of that through Survivor history and should capitalize, it is Parvati. So she's in a very good spot. She's a very good player. Yeah. Do you have any more thoughts on how Parvati might do in the season?
I mean, I think the reality is, being a Parvati fan can kind of be seen as normie opinion, a cold take, if you will. But I think throughout this entire podcast, just speaking about it, it's like, yeah, that's a basic take, but also it's not a wrong one. Like she's just that good. I don't know. I feel really good about her odds, Shannon. I do. I think that also AU versus the world not being an all winners cast, but having a lot of them or a lot of people that have done really well also helps, because it's like it doesn't matter. Your argument that Parv has won means nothing when someone else has also won. So that kind of gets canceled out completely. So again, because that cancels out, the reputation thing goes out the window. It all comes down to what? Social game and then strategy. And she's got both. So I feel good about her chances there. Like in a world where there's a world where we can see Suri win, I love that. But if Suri can't win, I want Parv to win. That's kind of where I'm at. Even though Parv is my winner pick, I'm still like, oh, maybe hopefully Suri wins because I want Suri to be successful in Survivor. But yeah, I don't know. Call me
Yeah.
basic, but I'm all in.
Personally, I love basic opinions. Sometimes cliches are cliches
Yeah.
for a reason. Like, being controversial and not liking Parvati just because she's so cool. Like, I don't understand that. I don't really think people do that, to be honest. I think like Parvati has a pretty solid hit rate in terms of like how much people love her. Um, yeah, I think that it's not that she's a winner when you say that, like, oh, there are other winners. Like, that's the least of like her threat level. I think, again, considering like I'm not even that high on the win. I am high on the win. That's not fair. She did incredible things. Like the
Mhm.
Blackwood Brigade are amazing. There's the caveat of she shouldn't have gone to the end with Suri. It's still like a solid win considering all the other things, but it's the least threatening thing about her. The most threatening thing about her is that is Parvati, right? Like that, like she is beyond win. You don't need to know that she won to understand the lore, which goes so far beyond the win. I think that's the thing. But in this cast, there's David, there's Tony. Like, it's very rare for Parvati to have shields. Again, in Heroes versus Villains, which was a huge cast of winners, of everyone. I don't know. I can't really remember it from high school. I just remember that letter. But I do think like there was Boston Rob, there was Parvati. Like she was a big name. Like they really came in there talking about Parvati. And in this cast, like they will talk
Is.
about Parvati. You always do. You always do. But it is
Yeah.
cool that if they're gonna get rid of like a big name on the world tribe, like I think Tony's in way more trouble than her early.
Exactly.
If she swaps, like I think David's a shield. It's rare for Parvati Shallow to have shields, and but she does kind of in this cast,
You
and that
know,
is phenomenal. So yeah, it's a great spot.
yeah, I feel like we've talked about every element and season and show she's been on, with the exception of Winners at War. Now I know that's one of your seasons that you hold in high regard. So, and my memory is not the best. I've only watched it the one time. So, can you remind me and the audience what goes wrong for Parv in Winners at War, where everyone's a winner and everyone should be seen as a shield for one another, kind of thing?
It wasn't like I didn't even really remember it. When the War is a Blur, it's one of my favorite seasons. I'm like even looking it up today, I was like, wow, that went worse for her than I remembered. Because I do think she teams up with Boston Rob. That was the big thing, that she and Boston Rob are now
Hmm.
going to be like this new, like almost like David Parv, King and Queen, and they team up, and that is so cool and so short lived. Because then the old schoolers are going to get a little dominated by new schoolers who have the numerical advantage. Is that her fault? I don't know. is, she loses Ethan in that spot, and then she's going to get to the swap, and that's why she actually gets sent to the edge. But I don't know how much that's her fault. But I also kind of see Winners at War as like it's 10 years on. It's kind of like the cobwebs being like dusted out a little bit. It's going to be like the first thing she does before getting back into this like reality TV renaissance. So she's really like one of the pivotal people with. She has a book now, she has a podcast. Like she's really like back in that world. And I feel like Winners at War, like she had just had a child. It's just kind of getting back into that. She played 3 times in 3 years in her early to mid 20s, and then not again for 10 years. Had a kid, came back. I see Winners at War as more kind of the experience. Some good things on the edge. Like, look how much she bonds with Natalie on the edge. Like, we see, like, and when I talk about, like, having that, like, cool girl gang in that partner, like, that's Natalie, but it's on the edge because they wrote out Natalie first. But, yeah, I see it more like that. It's kind of like being back on the island, having the social skills. They do lose. Like, she and Boston Rob lose in that pre-merge, and then she goes to a swap that I think was, like, heavily pre-gamed and gets voted out. Yeah, so I don't think it says much about her game other than the fact that, like, she was back after a long hiatus and now has like really gotten back into reality TV to like various effects. As we said, the pros and cons of Traitors, which is a very different game. The pros mostly of DONDI, which is also a very different game. And now I kind of feel like this is a better spot for her. Like I'm glad that she's been able to kind of have those experiences recently to now do this. I'm glad that it's not like heroes versus villains 15 years off and then this. She's back in it. But I think Winners at War, if anything, was more of that, of like wading back into it after a very long break, after playing so much Survivor in such a short amount of time and dominating it so much decades before. Oh, you're muted.
So if anyone's listening to this and they're like, yeah, I don't know, you two seem to be like misremembering things, or you're like evaluating her higher than she actually is, I would say 2 things. I would say, sure, maybe. But then second, I would say, that's how good Parvati is. She misted me. I fully believe the things I'm saying. So that's another testament to how good she is.
Yeah, I think there's, that's like, if you've never met Parvati and you're an Australian Survivor fan who's about to find out what Parvati is all about, like you'll get it very quickly. I think that's the point. And she'll have nowhere to hide. And she has like an insane aura about her, insane charisma. She's very physical. She finds her friends, and those friends love her. Like she is like the center person in that group. But again, it's not like fully comprehensive. But like if she goes to war, it goes well often. And if it's going to go well, this season is a high chance that is one of those seasons. So we will see how it goes. I mean, in saying that, like yes, like in the heroes hated her. Like she's reading JT's note XOXO. The rumor's always been that she read the note with the heroes and they didn't like that. Like I'm not saying it's a perfect social game. Like this is what I'm saying. It's more binary. It's more of a game of extremes. Like Suri, does anyone hate Suri? Whereas like Parvati makes a lot of friends and also enemies, but in that dichotomy, often wins with her friends. I think that's kind of the way I sum it up.
Yeah, I would co-sign that.
Yeah, so that's Parvati's game. I watched all of Traitors for this. I hope you enjoyed our mini Traitors Season 2 review of Parvati.
Oh, yeah.
Literally, I got on the call and I'm like, Pooya, was Pilot Pete really crushing that? Like, that was my, like, I'm like, this is going so fast, but is that Pilot Pete? Is he crushing Dan? Shannon, what is happening?
That one moment has bought him so much goodwill that people still talk about how good he was as a faithful, which is fair, but I don't want to get on my soapbox again. But then the fact that he was so unwilling to play the game otherwise for himself makes him a flop. But in that moment, he is God. Like that was an amazing moment from him. Like to oust 2 of the biggest people in our reality realm is amazing. Have you watched all 3 now of the US seasons?
Yes. Well, to be fair, I tapped out after Parvati got banished, so I've watched most of all 3.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll get you to rank them at some other time then.
I actually really enjoyed this. I was like, wow, this is streaming by because I have one day to watch it, but I'm like, this is actually really good. When she had to poison Ek and Sue, I was on the edge of my seat personally, and then Pilot Pete, that was entertaining. How aware of you of are you of the Pilot Pete lore? I'm sure you got it all during the season. Do you know his
Well,
connection to Survivor?
no, what is this connection to Survivor?
His connection to Survivor is that he went on a date with who ended up being his third placer, I think, one of the people he did not have a relationship with or propose to after the show, one of the few, and they went to a concert, and the concert was Chase Rice,
Oh my God, I remember this. I've heard this now.
and she had dated Chase Rice. Yeah, that's the Survivor
That's
connection. So,
yeah, that's so funny.
crazy is
Yeah, I
crazy.
is listen, I feel like we're getting the world's becoming even smaller with every passing day, our little reality world where everyone's meshing into each other. And AU versus the world is legitimately the embodiment of that, because these are actively players I never in a million years expected to end up on the same season. Because usually people will talk, like, fantasize about it. Oh, blank versus the world, or like a global season. How would that go? And now we're getting it, and that is amazing.
Yeah, it is. It's wonderful. The Traitors as well is doing a lot of that, because how are these people all together? Why are we talking about Pilot, Pete, and Parvati? But we are.
I
No,
love a
this was a
crossover.
great time. This is yeah. It is. It's like this is the Avengers, really. Of, well, this not the Civil War. That's the opposite. It's some Marvel movie. AUV World is some Marvel movie that I send in. What Marvel movie you think AUV World is? It's something. And it's what our whole lives have been leading up to. It's what 17-year-old me would be dying to think about. I want to tell that person that Sandra's also good, you idiot, but it's fine. Pooya, where can people find you?
I can be found on all socials at Pooyaism, on Twitch, twitch.tv/Pooya. I'm there quite a bit when I'm not podcasting. You can find me there. I'm talking with Liana every week over on the PAL, the Pooya and Liana Lounge. We have a fun time. And live feed updates every Friday this season with Taryn talking Big Brother and 90 Day Fiance.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, this is the last of the AU World Tour podcast. We really did a world tour. We went all around the world as described. If you missed any of that, those are all on YouTube, WeKnowGlobalSurvivor.com. All that Rob has a website, all on everywhere you get your podcast. So if you want to know about any of the players, and I've really had a great time in this series, because I feel like every podcast has been so different and unique to each player. Like, we've really got into the intricacies of their game, of their journeys, of their chances. We've been debating things from the past. Like, I think that the analysis has been like heavier than you think, for just like kind of retreading 14 players that we're very excited to see. And also for two of them, to be fair, it wasn't a retread. We watched, I watched internationals, the global, non-English speaking Survivor. But yeah, I hope that you guys have enjoyed it. And yeah, they're all there for you to check out. The season starts August 17th. Now through the preseason, we're going to have a draft with Pooya, Chappelle, and Mike. We're going to do a podcast with Rob talking about the season. We are going to do It's a Look, and then the season will start, and we'll cover it every day. Well, not every day. We'll do the daily recaps of the episodes with Pooya, Chappelle, and Mike. We will have weekly coverage with Rob, and we will have X interviews. So WeKnowGlobalSurvivor.com. Follow me at Shannon Guss. You don't miss any of that, because seriously, you can't miss a day. You cannot miss one day of it. It's going to go so fast that if you fall a day behind, it's done. So you got to keep up with us. Thank you so much. Thank you, Pooya, for being here as a Parvati expert. Thank you to our team behind the scenes, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.
This is RHAP. We know reality TV.